I will introduce this bill tomorrow. They can give us a hearing on it, mark it up, and it won't cost the taxpayers a cent, and it will save the city's money. I now yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from New York.
Gentlelady from New York is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks, and I thank the ranking member for yielding. As the ranking member stated before, this is not only about foreclosed properties, this is about abandoned properties. The National Stabilization Program will help rehab over 600 properties in New York City alone. But this is not just an issue for New York. This is a national problem. It was created by a decade of overheated mortgage lending and excess on Wall Street. It makes sense that our cities should have a national response. But contrary to common sense, the bill we consider today will abandon our cities and towns and force them to deal with this issue on their own. The foreclosure crisis has a ripple effect on our whole economy. Foreclosed and abandoned homes consume limited city resources. At the same time, these homes lower property values for everyone in the neighborhood. Assistance from the NSP can not only rehab empty homes, it can also reverse the downward spiral in property values. This bill eliminates the only housing mitigation program committed to stemming these ripple effects. Foreclosures are costly to everyone. Without the NSP, Main Street will bear the costs of a problem created on Wall Street. Nationwide, nearly 100,000 projects will be undertaken with NSP funds. Property values will be restored in these neighborhoods, and working families will once again have access to affordable housing. Yet, if this legislation is enacted, 200 projects in New York City will go unfinished. Withdrawing support for the NSP at this stage will slow the volume recovery in our housing sector, not just for New York City, but also for cities and towns across America. Mr. Chairman, I urge a no vote on this ill-conceived and I could say mean-spirited legislation, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentlelady from Illinois.
At this time, Mr. Chairman, I would like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Virginia, the Majority Leader, Mr. Cantor.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Chairman, I thank the gentlelady. Mr. Chairman, from day one, the majority of this Congress promised the American people that we would focus like a laser on producing results. And over the past 2 months, we've already begun to deliver on that promise by upending the culture of spending that prevailed in Washington and replace it with the culture of savings. The most important thing government can do right now is to create an environment that fosters opportunity for people. But if you talk to the small businesses and entrepreneurs who create jobs, they'll tell you that the explosion of government debt is threatening their ability to innovate and compete. Unless we move swiftly to change course, our economy will be consumed by fears of future tax increases, inflation, and higher borrowing costs. That's why our majority is dedicated to our cut and grow agenda, cutting spending and job-destroying regulations, and growing private sector jobs in the economy. Yesterday, we took another significant step toward returning spending to 2008 levels. Today, we offer members a chance, through the U-Cut program, to cut an additional $1 billion in waste. This legislation, endorsed by millions of voters in the U-Cut program, would terminate the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, a pot of money, as the other side will tell you, that enables state and local governments to buy and rehabilitate foreclosed homes. Instead of benefiting at-risk homeowners facing foreclosure, however, this program may instead create perverse incentives for banks and other lenders to foreclose on troubled borrowers. The People's House is drawing a firm line in the sand against wasteful spending and inefficient government programs, and I urge my colleagues to support this legislation. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Massachusetts.
How much time remains on both sides, Mr.
The
Chairman?
gentleman from Massachusetts has 4 minutes remaining. The gentlelady from Illinois has 3.5 minutes remaining.
I have only one last speaker, so does the gentleman have more than one speaker?
There's just two speakers on this side, Mr.
Well, then
Miller and
I'll
myself.
reserve, so I'll be
All
my
right.
last speaker, so I'll reserve for the next.
Then I would yield 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from California.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
My good friend, Mr. Frank, brought up a point. He says, well, show me where any of these egregious things and illegal things have occurred where somebody's cut somebody a deal. Well, I can't show you any because there's no requirements. You could take one of these nonprofit, non-government entities out here who bought a house. They have $180,000 in the house. One of the board members' cousins could buy that house for $100,000, and it does not violate the requirements within the bill because it says you have to sell that house for less than the acquisition and rehabilitation prices. It does not say how much less. It says you must not exceed an amount. So my good friend is absolutely correct. I cannot show you an egregious act because there is no egregious act defined within the legislation. And that's the problem with the bill. I believe we're trying to say that the Republicans are on the side of the taxpayers. We believe that we need to do everything we can in this country to create jobs. And if we leave $7 billion in the economy based on the basic money multiplier of 10%, it creates $70 billion worth of economy in generation. We believe in that. We do believe in fair rules. And we believe that if a person has to watch their home go into foreclosure, and they live in California, and they watch a county, a city, or a nonprofit group buy that home, that they can sell that home to somebody for $68,000, and all that person can do that lost their home is wipe the tears away.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Well, I yield myself my remaining time. I appreciate the gentleman's acknowledgement. With all of their efforts, they were out finding pictures of abandoned houses. They couldn't find one example where that abuse took place. In fact, there are a set of rules and restrictions that HUD has that I will submit under general leave. But again, let's review some of their errors. The fundamental error is the argument that this is a program which buys money from banks that have foreclosed and own the property. In fact, it is foreclosed and abandoned property. There are also entities that foreclosed that weren't banks, that are non-existent anymore. Yes, it does not deal with all the properties. Where there is a responsible bank that you can go after, the cities go after them. But the suggestion that in Detroit, in Cleveland, in Boston, in Chicago, in all of our cities, and in our rural areas, there are no abandoned properties that lack someone you can sue is unreality. This is a triumph of ideological reflex over empirical observation. What this says to cities is, where you cannot find a responsible owner to go after, and the property is festering, if it's too far gone, you can tear it down. If it's not too far gone, you can take it and resell it for an affordable unit. Yeah, it's got to be a limited income situation. Now, so that just disputes the whole notion that there's always somebody else you can get. But I still believe it's true that we shouldn't let this come from the taxpayer. But I want to reiterate, and I'll make this offer. In the Conference Committee on Financial Reform, when this bill was passed, that's true also, by the way, of the emergency homeowners relief, we said let's not have it come from the taxpayer. Let's have it come from financial institutions with $50 billion or more in assets, except for hedge funds where it's $10 billion more in assets. If that had passed, it would have cost the taxpayers, the general revenue, nothing. It would not have added to the deficit. And to the extent that some financial institutions were benefiting, they would have had to contribute. In fact, it would have had the larger financial institutions help the smaller financial institutions. The Republicans killed that before, but I believe in repentance, Mr. Chairman. I believe in second chances for miscreants. I'm going to give, Mr. Chairman, my Republican colleagues a second chance. So for all their rhetoric about the deficit, here's the response. instead of, here are the choices. You can tell Detroit and Cleveland and other cities, you tear down that property when there's nobody else to go to, and you pay for it and lay off some teachers and cops and firefighters. Or you leave the property up there to fester, or you do it our way. You join in assessing the large financial institutions. And I don't mean to demonize Citicorp or Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Blackstone. These are decent people. They are trying to make a profit. I don't always agree with them. Why don't we let them pay the $1 billion? So if there is a genuine concern about the deficit, I'm skeptical when people want to send the money to Afghanistan and Iraq and to Brazilian cotton farmers. It's Obama made them do that. Whenever they have a tough political decision, Mr. Chairman, Obama did it. Why can't they solve the problems of Fannie and Freddie? Well, Obama won't tell them how to do it. So they always hide behind the president when it's convenient. But here's the deal. It is undeniable. Let's go back to the gentleman from Alabama. He found a building that was so decrepit, he had a picture. And he said to us, you can go to the owner of that building and get the money. Well, he could find the building to take a picture, but he couldn't find the owner. Because I asked him, if that's the case, if we can go to the owner, tell me who the owner is, and let's try and go after him. And he left the floor because he doesn't know who the owner is, because in some cases nobody knows who the owner is, because the property has been abandoned or it was foreclosed upon by an entity that's no longer in existence. So join with us, make the large financial institutions and hedge funds pay for this, and save the cities money that they do not have.
It's expired. The gentlelady from Illinois.
I yield myself the remainder of the time.
Gentlelady is recognized.
The gentleman might be interested to know that there was the Hope 6 bill that was an amendment to that. H.R. 3524 was made by Representative Sessions. The amendment sought to maintain HUD's authority to issue demolition-only grants, and that was failed by a recorded vote of 186 to 221. Voting no on that was the gentleman, Mr. Franks and Ms. Waters, Mr. Ellison, and Ms. Valaquist. No, I can't yield now. I don't have much time. You know, I've been listening to all of this, and I think that everybody knows we all want to get the housing market back on track. We all want to be able to help those that are in trouble. But many of the colleagues on my other side have said that if you end these programs, there will be nothing, and that's just not true. Of the 4.1 million mortgage modifications that were completed, 3.5 million were done by the private sector with no government program and not a dime of taxpayer, not a dime from the taxpayers. So there is a market out there. There is also the Home Affordable Refinance Program, HARP, for homeowners. And don't forget the Hardest Hit Fund, which was President Obama established. And in 2008, $300 million in guarantees were committed for homeowners, a voluntary FHA program. $475 million have been appropriated to Neighbor Works for foreclosure counseling. And finally, there are countless local, state, and private sector initiatives. So let us not forget that this is being taken care of, and rather than have a program that really doesn't affect those that have been foreclosed on. It really is a program for counties, non-for-profits, for the states, and it can cause incentives for banks and other lenders to foreclose on troubled borrowers, worsening and prolonging the housing credit crisis. So let's get back to what this bill really does, and it doesn't help taxpayers. And with that, I would yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady's time has expired. All time for general debate has expired. Pursuant to the rule, the amendment in the nature of a substitute printed in the bill shall be considered as an original bill for the purpose of amendment under the 5-minute rule and shall be considered read. No amendment to the committee amendment is in order except those printed in Part B of House Report 112-34. Each such amendment may be offered only in the order printed in the report, except that Amendment Number 9 and Amendment Number 10 may be offered only en bloc. May be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment, and shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question. For what purpose does the gentleman from Minnesota seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have a preferential motion at the desk.
Clerk will read the motion.
Mr. Ellison of Minnesota moves that the committee do now rise and report the bill to the House with the recommendation that the enacting clause be stricken.
Gentleman from Minnesota is recognized for 5 minutes in support of his motion.
Mr. Chair, I rise and make this motion today because I'm opposed to the underlying bill, the NSP Termination Act. Mr. Chair, in the course of this debate on the termination of foreclosure mitigation programs, including this bill, we've been enmeshed in a huge debate around what the proper role of government is. The Republican caucus clearly thinks that government has no role, that citizens are on their own, and that no matter how much devastation a particular phenomenon like foreclosure crisis has caused, that citizens just have no help in the government. The government can't be there for them. And on the other hand, the Democratic caucus, we believe that in the proper circumstances, the government has an important role and does need to be there for the American people. And when we see property values dropping, whole neighborhoods destroyed, that we should do something about it. This motion to strike the enacting clause, according to Rule 18, Clause 9, quote, if carried in the House, shall constitute a rejection of the bill, unquote. And, Mr. Chair, I urge that we do reject this bill. This bill is an affront and an insult at a time when Americans have seen over 4 million foreclosures across this nation, devastating whole communities, and wiping out city and municipal budgets so that cities, when they have abandoned properties on their neighborhoods, are left with tearing them down and demolishing them on the nickel of the taxpayer in that city, when in fact this is a community-wide problem. There's no money in many cities to do the demolition, so what will happen is that an old burned-out hulk will sit there as neighbors look on and see the property values in their homes plummet. And what we'll see, Mr. Chair, is people leaving dogs there. Perhaps the house will be an attractive nuisance. Perhaps some crime will be committed there, drug dealing there, dead animals left there, and neighborhoods will fall deeper and deeper into despair. You know, I grew up in the city of Detroit. I'm honored to represent the 5th District of Minneapolis today, but I grew up in the city of Detroit. And I saw how the foreclosures in that city ripped that town apart. And the good people of that city had to sit by and watch folks burn houses. They would put them on fire, and years later, no money to demolish them for the city had, and it just helped folks say that, you know what, I'm going to leave the city because I can't stand to live here with that big hulk right next to my home. Who's going to help out? Well, according to the Republican caucus, that's not the proper role of government. And this is really what this is all about. Mr. Chairman, I've heard our friends in the Republican caucus talk about jobs, yet they haven't introduced one single jobs bill, and we've been here for 11 weeks. They talk about the deficit and go on ad nauseum about putting debt on our children and grandchildren. And yet, when they had the chance to raise we had the chance to raise revenue so that we could, in fact, pay the bills of this country, they were absolutely and adamantly opposed to it. But now, when we see Americans have their neighborhoods slipping into oblivion, slipping into a situation where people can't live in the neighborhood and people can't sell their homes so they're just suffering, the Republican caucus said there's nothing we can do for you either. They don't really demonstrate a commitment to jobs, don't really demonstrate a commitment to even dealing with the deficit, at least not through revenue raising. They have a commitment to just set Americans adrift and on their own. I make this motion to correct the record on the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. This isn't a broken or ineffective program that should be eliminated. It's a vitally important program for local and state governments that need all the resources they can get to address neighborhoods that are overrun by foreclosures. According to HUD, the Neighborhood Stabilization Program has supported close to 100,000 jobs nationwide. They will be eliminated if we pass this bill. That's right, Republicans again are cutting another 100,000 jobs for working Americans. So, Mr. Chair, what does the Neighborhood Stabilization Program do? It helps local and state governments renovate abandoned and foreclosed properties. It helps local governments revitalize communities instead of watching these neighborhoods deteriorate. It gives communities the ability to get back on their feet as quickly as possible. In my district of the city of Minneapolis has put NSP funding to good use. Tom Strites is the Director of Housing and Policy and Development for the City of Minneapolis, and he explains, quote, "The Neighborhood Stabilization Program has enabled the City of Minneapolis to stabilize neighborhoods throughout the city affected by foreclosure. Funding to date has impacted more than 530 properties, and with the additional funding sought, 56 more properties could be rehabilitated, bringing even more homeowners back into neighborhoods," unquote. I believe the NSP program is a good investment, and I yield back.
His time has expired. The questions on the preferential motion offered by the gentleman from Minnesota. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Gentleman from Minnesota.
I ask for a recorded vote on the pending that I make a point of order that a quorum is not present.
The chair will count for a quorum. Does the gentleman from Minnesota withdraw his point of order?
Yes.
The chair will count for recorded vote. The report of the recorded vote will rise. Sufficient number having arisen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
The House in a procedural vote after a bit of debate on one of two bills dealing with home foreclosures. This bill is a bill that within the neighborhood foreclosure program, the neighborhood support program, another bill that was approved as a rule, the homeowner assistance mortgage program, will be debated when the House comes back after recess. Now, ahead, our debate on some 10 amendments to this bill. Representative Ellison of Minnesota made a point of order and objected to further proceedings on the bill, and this is a procedural vote on that, 15-minute vote on the House floor. The underlying bill is a measure that would end a federal program in which the government helps buy and develop foreclosed homes. They've wrapped up general debate, an hour of general debate, still to come, debate and votes on a number of amendments. This is a vote on a motion made by Keith Ellison of Minnesota to strike the enacting clause, a procedural vote ahead of more debate on amendments. Stacy Caper is an economic staff writer with National Journal. White House Republicans want to end this program that's aimed at rehabilitating foreclosed homes.
This program, they believe, has just been a waste of taxpayer dollars. It fits in with the broader agenda of trying to cut government money that's been going towards programs dealing with housing and foreclosure issues. It's been one of a package of 4 bills that the House has been dealing with recently that are all aimed at sort of the same general idea of cutting back on the government's involvement in assisting with these housing relief programs.
And that fourth in that package of 4 is approved also in the rule today, that HAMP program, the mortgage modification program. Why aren't they taking up that bill today, and when are they going to take it up?
My understanding is that they will be coming back to that bill as soon as they get back from the recess when there's time on the floor that week. It's really the most controversial probably of these 4 bills that they have been working on. It's the administration's main modification program. It was intended originally to assist between 3 to 4 million borrowers. It's only reached a little over 600,000 with permanent loan modifications. So it has been ironically criticized from both the left and the right for different reasons. And the Democrats have wanted to improve HAMP and other foreclosure prevention programs, and Republicans, this is another cost savings mechanism. They think it's been wasteful and hasn't had much bang for its buck, so to speak.
You mentioned the reason that Republicans are opposed to some of these programs, in particular on this bill. What are Democrats saying about the measures, about the programs, and why they say these programs work?
Well, for one thing, there's been a lot of back and forth. There's been a number of Democrats who've been very engaged in the foreclosure crisis and trying to work on mortgage modifications. Maxine Waters, in particular, has been particularly engaged. I mean, she has been very critical of the Treasury Department for not ramping up its efforts. But one of the difficulties with HAMP is that there are certain eligibility criteria, and with the unemployment rate being higher now than it was a few years ago, it's been difficult for borrowers to qualify. They still have to be able to pay a mortgage even if it's at a reduced rate. So there's just been a lot of back and forth. The Democrats that support these programs say, rather than abandoning them, we need to really try to strengthen and improve them and deal with the problems and their shortfalls rather than give up altogether.
How has the White House weighed in on this neighborhood stabilization bill and the HAMP bill?
The White House has issued veto warnings for all 4 of the housing bills, 2 that were already passed in the House, this one that's due to be voted on today, and the HAMP one when they return from recess. The administration has said that all of these efforts not only help individuals, in the case of HAMP, hang on to their homes, with the neighborhood stabilization program, help to rebuild communities and prevent foreclosures from dragging down the home values of neighborhood properties. But the administration says that these also help the broader economic recovery, and it would be a mistake to end these programs, and it's issued a veto threat.
And assuming that the bill, in particular today, passes the House, what are the prospects in the Senate?
So far, there doesn't seem to be much appetite in the Senate among Democrats to engage in this debate. Discussions with senators there have been that, look, we understand that there's problems. We are hopeful that the backdrop of this is that there's this huge global mortgage servicing settlement that several federal agencies and state attorneys generals are working on, trying to get an agreement that would in part deal with the loan modification issue. They're hopeful for that to reach some sort of conclusion that could assist homeowners and perhaps find ways to enforce new servicing standards that would be helpful in the HAMP program with modifications. So there has not seemed to be much appetite so far in the Senate among Democrats to have this debate.
Stacey Caper covers economics issues for National Journal, reporting on the debate on the home mortgage bills today here on the House floor. Thanks for the update. You can read her work at nationaljournal.com. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And on the House floor, they are voting a procedural vote here on a motion made by Keith Ellison of Minnesota, who, by the way, will have one of the 10 amendments that are to be debated on this neighborhood stabilization bill. They finished up general debate. Amendment debate still ahead on the House floor. They're expecting to wrap up work on this bill by sometime late this afternoon, and all of that ahead here on C-SPAN. Earlier today, Energy Secretary Stephen Chu was on Capitol Hill, ostensibly to testify about the Energy Department's fiscal year 2012, but obviously a lot of questions about nuclear power in the wake of the earthquake and tsunami and nuclear problems in Japan. We want to show you just a portion of one of the hearings where Secretary Chu testified this morning. You can watch all of it online, but here's some of that from this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, after Chernobyl, many said such an event could not happen in the United States because the Soviet Union's nuclear sector was not as advanced as our own. And there was truth to that. The Chernobyl plant was not as advanced and was not designed with many of the safeguards we have in the United States. But Japan is a highly developed country. It is as technologically sophisticated as us, And there's much concern in the U.S. that a similar accident can occur here. How do you respond to that concern?
Well, first I would agree with you. The reactor in Chernobyl was of a different design. It had points of instability. It had no containment vessel. But we are looking very carefully at what is happening in Japan because, as you say, they're using more advanced designs. A number of reactors in the United States with similar designs, and we're going to look at what went wrong in terms of this double-barreled whammy of this huge earthquake and then a huge tsunami, and look to our reactors again and learn as much as we can so we can, if needed, improve the safety. By if needed, what I really mean is that we're always increasing the safety of our reactors, and not only our reactors, but the safety of all our industrial systems. And
Mr. Secretary, 2 days ago, a number of us wrote to Chairman Upton, Whitfield, and Stearns requesting that our committee here investigate and hold hearings about the safety and preparedness of nuclear power plants in the United States. Do you think we should investigate the issues to ensure the safety of our nuclear plants?
I think that will naturally occur, especially given the events in Japan, that we will look back as we learn what happened and apply those lessons were needed to all of our nuclear power reactors. That will be a natural consequence.
Well, a natural consequence for everybody to look at it, but quite frankly, I think we have a responsibility in the Congress, not just you in your position, but we in the Congress, for our oversight and investigative purposes since we write the laws. Now, let me ask you about the laws that we're in the middle of writing. We're trying to figure out our energy policy, and the Republican energy policy seems to be depending on coal, oil, and nuclear power. That's what they look to for the future. In fact, it's been the past. And we do have a problem of climate change because of the carbon and other greenhouse gases. We do have a problem now that so much of all of our eggs are in the nuclear basket. When we look at the Republican budget, they are putting in billions of dollars of investment and thousands of construction and permanent jobs are all going to nuclear. But they're rescinding a lot of your budget to deal with other things that are clean and reliable and safe, such as renewable energy and energy efficiency. Just to dramatize this issue, the Republicans on this Republicans would rescind $25 billion of the $47 billion in loan guarantee authority that was provided to you in 2009. But they preserve $20.5 billion in loan guarantees for nuclear energy while leaving only $1.5 billion for all other technologies. They say that for all of the above strategy. That's an all-nuclear strategy to me. In the time, I'd like to have you explain why it's so important for America to be looking at these other projects as we devise our energy strategy to move us away from dependence on oil and coal and maybe even nuclear for our future.
Certainly, if you look at what's going to be happening in this century, we believe, for example, that the prospect of solar power coming down in price, the business community thinks that within this decade, the full-in costs of solar generation of electricity will be cut in half. We have had a number of work groups, and we think it's very possible that by the end of this, not century, but the end of this decade, that it perhaps can be cut to 25% of what it is today.
They'll be competitive if we make investments in them.
It will be very competitive, and realizing that there is a high probability, a reasonable probability that solar energy, other renewable energies, wind, could be competitive with fossil fuel by the end of this decade.
But nuclear energy, on the other hand, is not competitive unless the government subsidizes it. The market does not pick nuclear power as a winner if the market works its will by itself. Isn't that correct?
At the moment, I think nuclear and renewables do need help, but going forward, we're trying to figure out a plan where none of those will will need subsidy.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. In light of what's happened in Japan, I would like to hear what you believe President Obama's position is now on nuclear power generally in the United States. Does he still support a rebirth of nuclear power and construction of new plants? Could you just give us your best estimate of what his position is?
Well, I think the President and the Administration believes that we have to be looking very, very closely at the events in Japan. As I said before, we have to apply whatever lessons that can be and will be learned from what has happened and is happening in Japan. With those lessons would then be applied to first look at our current existing fleet of reactors to make sure that they can be used safely, and also to look at how, as one proceeds forward, that any lessons learned to be applied. It'd be premature to say anything other than we will use this opportunity to learn as best we can and consider carefully how to go forward.
I'm not sure what you just said.
Okay.
Does the President support new nuclear power plant construction in the United States?
The present budget is what it is, and we're asking for loan guarantees. The present budget is also calling for small modular reactors. That position has not been changed.
So that's a yes?
That's a yes.
Good. That's what I wanted you to say. See, if you just said yes, then easy. Now, with regards to the loan guarantees that you just mentioned, given again what's happened, do you and the President want the Congress to support the full $36 billion that you have put in the President's budget?
Yes.
Okay. You're learning. You're not a Nobel Prize winner for nothing, I guess, huh?
It's one of two Hill hearings we covered today dealing with nuclear energy and the Japanese nuclear crisis. As a matter of fact, the second hearing, the briefing underway at the Senate Environment Committee and Environment and Public Works, they're underway now, and you can follow that hearing live now on C-SPAN 3. And the hearing you just saw, the House Energy hearing, you can find that online at cspan.org. Back here live on the House floor, a procedural vote ahead of debate on 10 amendments on a bill that would eliminate the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. CQ's David Hawkins writes that this is a bill that would end a program created during the 2008 mortgage crisis that helps governments and nonprofit groups buy and redevelop foreclosed and abandoned houses. He writes the bill stands no chance of enactment before the next $1 billion round of grants goes out the door in 2 weeks. So it's a 15-minute vote on the House floor. 10 amendments will be considered. Over in the Senate today, they continue work on a small business research bill, or reauthorization bill, I should say, and you can follow the Senate, of course, on C-SPAN 2. Tomorrow in the House, Thursday, a couple of bills to tell you about. First one that would defund National Public Radio, and the other one by Democrat Dennis Kucinich of Ohio, War Powers Resolution, dealing with U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. General David Petraeus spent his second day on Capitol Hill today testifying on the status of the U.S. in Afghanistan, and he was asked in particular about the effects or possible effects of the Kucinich War Powers Resolution on U.S. policy and U.S. troops, the question posed by Alabama Republican Martha Roby from this morning.
General Petraeus is the commander of our forces in Afghanistan. What is your view on the advisability of the House of Representatives passing a resolution offered by Representative Kucinich that would call for the removal of all U.S. forces from Afghanistan no later than December 31st, 2011? And specifically, how do you believe our troops would view such a measure, and how do you believe the Taliban and al-Qaeda would view such a measure?
Well, to start with the latter elements, the Taliban and al-Qaeda obviously would trumpet this as a victory, as a success. Needless to say, it would completely undermine everything that our troopers have fought so much for and sacrificed so much for. Ultimately, though, this is about our vital national security interests And as President Obama has identified them, foremost among these is ensuring that al-Qaeda and other transnational extremists cannot reestablish sanctuaries such as they had in Afghanistan under Taliban rule. When the 9/11 attacks were planned in Afghanistan, the initial training of the attackers was carried out in Afghanistan before the attackers moved on to Germany and then U.S. flight schools and then carried out their acts of terror. So needless to say, this would close the door on the very, very hard-fought effort and end a mission that I think is seeking to achieve a very, very important security objective of our country as well as of our allies. Again, there are 48 troop-contributing nations, including the U.S. I think among the biggest alliances, certainly way beyond just NATO. It's NATO plus ISAF troop-contributing nations. And what it would do in the region, of course, would be of really incalculable consequence as well.
And for our troops?
Well, you know, when we have taken, in particular, I think, tough losses, and I remember the first time when I was a division commander in Iraq in 2003, and we had a horrible night. We had two Black Hawk helicopters that collided. One was circling an operation, the other, for some reason, transited, and 17 great troopers were killed in a single crash in a single night. And as you might imagine, this is all that a commander, that's all that an organization can think about, even after we had done the recovery in the middle of the night and everything else. And on the way out of the command post the next morning, we were trying to go through the motions of getting back to the normal battle rhythm, because you have to drive on, you have to continue the mission. And it was a young private first class actually saw me. He was walking out of the hallway of the command post, and he literally put his arm around me, and he said, "You know, sir, that's 17 reasons to get this thing right. We've had well over 1,000 reasons to get this thing right, and many thousands more whose lives have been changed forever because of grievous wounds. Again, obviously, this would not allow us to get this right."
Thank you so much. I yield back.
General David Petraeus from earlier before the House Armed Services Committee, all of that hearing available online. General Petraeus and Undersecretary Michelle Flournoy were also before the Senate Armed Services Committee yesterday, and that's also online. And just want to let you know that War Powers resolution you heard discussed will come up on the House floor tomorrow. Currently on the House floor, this is a motion made by Keith Ellison of Minnesota, procedural motion ahead of debate on some 10 amendments to a bill that would end a federal program in which the government helps buy and develop foreclosed homes. 15-minute vote winding down and debate again on 10 amendments. Keith Ellison has a number of those amendments pending. A bit of political news from 2012 from the Associated Press announced this afternoon that Sharon Angle, former U.S. Senate contender who ran against Harry Reid in 2010, has announced to run for Congress. The Associated Press announces or writes that she announced in a YouTube video today that she will run for one of Nevada's 4 U.S. House seats in 2012 to, quote, stop the liberal agenda. She has raised some $14 million in one fundraising quarter and has traveled to Republican rallies in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, so she plans to run for the House in 2012.
the yeas are 183, the nays are 200.
Mr. Renacci. Mr. Renacci votes no.
On this vote, the yeas are 183, the nays are 240, and the motion is not agreed to. It is now in order to consider Amendment Number 1, printed in Part B of House Report Number 112-34. For what purpose does the gentleman from Minnesota seek recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 1, printed in Part B of House Report number 112-34, offered by Mr. Ellison of Minnesota.
Pursuant to House Resolution 170, the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Ellison, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The House will be in order. Gentleman may proceed.
I yield my time, myself, as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
The middle class is shrinking, and deficits are rising because the Republicans are giving a pass to special interests who cheated homeowners and wrecked our economy. Instead of working to keep middle-class families in their homes, the Republican plan is to foreclose on the American middle class. The American people sent us here to protect the American dream, not to perpetuate a Wall Street nightmare. Democrats are standing with the American people to create good-paying American jobs and to keep them in their homes. Democrats are working to ensure that every American who wants a good job can find one, and that middle-class Americans can afford to buy a home and live the American dream. The legislation on the floor today proposes cutting funding for neighborhood stabilization program. Republicans want to foreclose on the middle class, and my amendment forces members to look at how this legislation will impact their state. So far, for each member, if you read my amendment, you'll see how much funding may be cut from your state. My feeling is that before Republicans vote to cut funding for a successful housing program and foreclosure mitigation program, they should know how much funding is at risk for their state and what the people back home are going to think about their vote. This legislation to cut housing funding makes it clear that the majority is not focused on creating jobs. The Neighborhood Stabilization Program helps local communities redevelop abandoned and foreclosed properties, and that funding helps to create jobs. It takes workers to demolish an abandoned building. Overall, the Neighborhood Stabilization Program has created about 93,000 jobs. This legislation to cut NSP funding is just another bill offered up by the majority that will actually cut jobs. The unemployment rate is currently 8.9%. This rate is far too high. It is wasting human capital. People's skills and talents are sitting on the sidelines instead of being put to good use and earning a good paycheck. Unemployed Americans are ready to get back to work, and we must use every tool at our disposal to create new jobs. Instead of creating jobs, the Republican majority is launching an attack on American workers and foreclosing on the American dream. The Republican plan to cut funding and cut jobs won't help our economy. It's going to do the opposite. It's going to hold back our economic recovery. The continuing resolution passed last month by the majority would cut $60 billion from programs and agencies that help the middle class and working families. Economist Mark Zandi has estimated these cuts would result in the loss of 700,000 jobs. We can't afford to add to the already unacceptably high level of unemployment in this country. Republicans in Congress are pushing a reckless and irresponsible plan that protects tax breaks for millionaires and giveaways for corporate special interests at the expense of the middle class. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment and to vote against the underlying bill. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from California.
Yes, I rise to claim time in opposition.
The gentleman's recognized.
Well,
for
I'm
5
not
minutes.
opposed to this amendment. This amendment only deals with Stage 3 of a project that should have only been one phase. Now, I wish they would have talked about Phase 2, because I wished you would study where the money went on Phase 2, because in Phase 2 alone, we gave away $1.3 billion to non-government entities, incorporated businesses that are nonprofit. But you have to say, we did not stop a foreclosure. We just gave away in NSP 2 $1.3 billion. Of that, Neighborhood Lending Partners received $50 million. They do not have to pay it back. Now, they can take that $50 million. I'm sure they're a very reputable company, not accusing anybody of anything, but they could sell those houses for anything amount to whomever they want to, as long as it's below the price they have invested in business. Community Builders, Inc., $78.6 million. Los Angeles Neighborhood Housing Services, Inc., $60 million. Neighborhood Lending Partners of West Florida, Inc., $50 million. Chicanos por la Casa, Inc., $137 million. I wish we would have taken the time to review those and say, how was the money spent? But HUD did some work for us. So let's see what HUD did. HUD and OIG audited the State of Kansas Neighborhood Stabilization Program, NSP-1, and found that the state improperly obligated more than $12 million of its NSP-1 funds. HUD and OIG audited the Sacramento Housing Redevelopment Agency of Sacramento, California, and found that the agency did not administer its NSP funds in accordance with HUD rules and regulations. Specifically, it allowed ineligible properties to be rehabilitated, did not adequately monitor projects which resulted in ineligible costs, permitted the developer to make unnecessary upgrades and overly inflated construction budgets, did not ensure that it met the reporting requirements, and lacked management controls. I wish we would have audited this one in this amendment too. HUD OIG audited the City of County of Denver, Colorado, NSP-1, and found that the city improperly obligated more than $1.5 million of its NSP funds by recording its funds as obligated. HUD and OIG reviewed the City of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and found that the city generally administered its program, however, was sometimes inconsistent with identifying obligations and was not always accurate on reporting to HUD. On Louisville, Kentucky, again, very similar to the previous. Augusta, Georgia, did not have internal controls in place to perform continuous and routine monitoring of its obligation process to ensure that its obligations were processed as intended. HUD OIG reviewed Clark County, Nevada, NSP, and found that Clark County needs to revise its written procedures and developer agreements to ensure that properties to be sold to be eligible home buyers will be sold at a price permitted by NSP requirements. Means they probably were selling it too much money. So, although I do support the amendment at hand, I wish it had went farther and reviewed Phase 1 and 2. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Minnesota.
How much time remains on this side?
Both sides have 2 minutes remaining.
I yield my time to myself the balance of the time.
Gentleman's recognized.
2 particular points, Mr. Chair. One is that, first of all, there's never been a program from any state, federal, or local program that did not need review. And I can tell you that in the city of Minneapolis and in many other places, this program has been high quality and has been well run. Now, the question is interesting because if the gentleman wanted to talk about inefficiencies in a program, we could talk about fixing those programs. But we're not talking about fixing the NSP program. We're talking about eliminating it. And so I think if this was a sincerely made point, then we'd be talking about how we can improve the program. We should mend it, not end it. Secondly, this amendment that I'm offering tries to inform members as to the losses that their communities will endure by cutting the program. This program elimination will be felt across America in local communities where foreclosures are happening, and in those particular communities, members should know what's going to happen. That expenditures for demolishing and rehabilitating abandoned homes are not going to be there anymore, and I think it's important that members should know. And I think it's important that the people who live in the members' communities should know. And so I ask that the amendment be adopted. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from California.
Give myself as much time as I might consume.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
I disagree. It's not time to amend and pretend. It's time to end. The problem with this program is I highlighted you a few violations, but it's really hard to violate the program requirements because there are so few requirements. It says we're going to give you money. You can buy property. You can demolish houses. You can buy property. You can rehabilitate those properties. You have vast guidelines on how you rehabilitate them. In fact, an organization is not even required to have competitive bids. I can say I need some framing done. I can lend a sole source contract. Only one person applied. That's the person I asked to apply, and I can pay them the monies I deem appropriate. It says you have to sell the house for less than you have in it. It doesn't say you should attempt to try to sell at fair market value, although I've given you a list previously of how much you can make, which is quite a bit of money, and buy these houses. It just says you cannot sell them for more. It does not restrict them on who you sell them to. It does not restrict on whose affiliation you have with that might be buying them. In fact, there's almost impossible to have a conflict of interest because there's no conflict designed within the bill. So we can say let's amend and pretend, but let's just end. I yield back. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. All time has expired. The questions on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Minnesota. Those in favor signify so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Those that, in the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Gentleman from California. But the amendment is not agreed to.
Been requested.
Recorded vote has been requested. Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Minnesota will be postponed. It is now in order to consider Amendment Number 2 printed in Part B of House Report 1, Number 2 printed in Part B of House Report 112-34. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition? The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment Number 2, printed in Part B of House Report Number 112-34, offered by Mr. Hurt of Virginia.
Pursuant to House Resolution 170, the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Hurt, and a member opposed. Each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank my colleagues, Mr. Miller, Chairman Backus, and Chairman Biggert for their leadership on this very important issue. The Neighborhood Stabilization Program is another misdirected multi-billion-dollar bailout that hurts struggling homeowners by incentivizing lenders to foreclose properties rather than continue to work with those who are facing tough economic challenges. At a time when our nation faces over $14 trillion in debt, $1.6 trillion in deficit spending, and we're borrowing over 40 cents on every dollar we spend, we cannot continue to have taxpayers foot the bill for these unaccountable government programs that do nothing to solve the problems for which they were originally intended and harm our economic recovery. That is why I'm offering an amendment to H.R. 861, which would direct all unobligated funds to be returned to the Treasury to reduce the deficit of the federal government once the program is terminated. The people of the 5th District, Virginia's 5th District, called for serious and bold change last November. By working to reduce the size and scope of the federal government, save taxpayer dollars, and rein in out-of-control spending, we are listening to the people and taking the first steps to change the culture in our nation's capital so that we can grow the economy and create jobs for all Central, Southside Virginians and all Americans. I ask my colleagues to support this amendment and the underlying bill. I reserve the balance of my time.
Reserves his time. Who seeks time in opposition?